Hey guys, my name's Bryce, and first and foremost, how about the World Cup? Of course the French win it, so unfortunately I was going for Croatia, the underdogs, but it is what it is. It was a great match. But yeah, so I'll give you a little background about myself. I'll kind of buzz through a lot of this, just that way I don't keep it too mundane. But essentially I became an accidental investor in Bitcoin in about 2010. 2011 was about 9 cents, 10 cents while I was down at Stanford with some friends. I was on the original iPhone team. While in college, I was part of the MIT Stanford Venture Lab. I actually had a startup company here in Portland that I guess 3 years ago now was named the most promising and growing company here in Portland up until we exited. So now, got back into crypto, at least in this world, as it's started to really gain some traction. And the company that I'm talking about today is called ihouse.com. And essentially what ihouse.com is it walks through, it talks about actually tying an asset, so in this case, real estate, to crypto. So one of the examples, or at least the most recent example, was the petro in Venezuela. Whether or not it's real, to be determined, and whether or not we know how much con artistry is going on with the government down there, who knows? But essentially, what it is, though, is it's an attempt at tying crypto to an actual asset. In that case, it was oil. And so for us, the opportunity that our team and essentially founder of the company, who's based out of China, envisioned was that real estate's the largest asset class in the world, plain and simple. And so as a result, it's still a very kind of convoluted and there's a lot that goes on in terms of how to invest in real estate, but then also actually closing the deal. You have escrows, you have agents, you have brokers, among other things, right? And a lot of what blockchain and crypto provide they essentially streamline everything. So what we're talking about today is at least what the economics of asset tokenization is. And ultimately, to simplify that statement, tokenization is taking, for anyone who doesn't know, it's just taking any asset, could be this microphone, and saying, okay, there are 4 parts of this microphone, who wants to invest in it and buy a piece or all of it? And so tokenization it allows developers or anyone who holds real estate to essentially list it on a platform. Think of it kind of as like Airbnb, and as an individual, you can find investment opportunities anywhere in the world. And so ultimately, it kind of touched on it, blockchain, as everyone here knows, hopefully what that is, but it's just the underlying tech of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's just an iteration and an application on top of it. And so as it ties to just asset tokenization, what I was alluding to before, which is just it decreases the friction. So decreases the friction in terms of people, just any of us, having the ability to intelligently identify real estate or investment opportunities and actually executing on them. For us, we looked at multiple problems and challenges, and so to dive into that, you have to find trusted issuers, so people who actually hold the deed or just the real estate asset. We have to obviously look through and go through KYC, AML. We have to ensure that there's adequate technical infrastructure on the platform to execute these deals, and essentially letting developers or owners of real estate list their assets, and then obviously asset valuations and rating whether or not investments are good or bad. And so, back to what it solves. At the end of the day, what our platform has done is it's made what was traditionally an illiquid asset liquid. And so the example I gave, albeit briefly, was Airbnb. So in the beginning, whenever you traveled around the world, you had to find a hotel. You had to pick a hotel that you thought was decent. You had to look at reviews on a separate website. All just everything. And in most cases, the hotels were expensive. And so what Airbnb did was they just allowed you to find literally anything. It could be a shack or whatever your preference may be. In some cases, a castle over in Europe. But you can log in and find anywhere you want to stay, just any opportunity. And so similar to kind of what Airbnb did for renting places, that's what we're doing in terms of investing in actual assets. So when you go onto ihouse.com, and when it launches, at least here in the U.S., I'll get to a couple of examples of listings that we've done over in Japan and in China. But ultimately, what happens is if you find an opportunity that you want to invest in, let's say over in the Japanese market, you can invest in it, and it could be $250 all the way up to $10 million. It doesn't matter how much you want to put into it. And you can hold it for a year, you can hold it for 10 years, you can hold it for 20 years, doesn't matter. But at the same time, let's say you want to get out or exit, you need cash, you need liquidity. All you do is go back onto the platform and say, I want to sell this. And, assuming there's demand for that property, you'll sell it instantaneously and you can liquidate your funds. So again, we're making what was traditionally an illiquid market much more liquid. And so, here are some of the other pain points that I touched over. And so, here are actually existing use cases and projects that are out there in relation to just tying tokens or coins to tangible assets. Obviously, Tether was the very first one. In relation to US dollars with what Brock and some of those guys did. But you have a number of different companies starting to pop up, at least over the course of the past year, that are looking at how do you tokenize tangible assets and solve exactly kind of all of these pain points that I've hit on prior. Here are a couple of others, at least in the real estate space. So Proppy is unique because what you can do is you can just buy and sell just smaller properties. For us, we're more into larger investments. But Deedcoin, Imbrex, there are a couple of others who try to solve some of these challenges. And so for us, ultimately, as it ties to real estate, where we see the big opportunity is we see that in what we are from an ATO perspective, so again, an asset tokenization offering, we are the world's first real estate usage rights tokenization platform. IHT is the crypto that you trade when making the investments on the platform. And then IHT Pay is the way at which the actual payments can occur on the platform. And so this is just highlights at least a few more of the elements. So, in summary, we're taking REITs and just streamlining every single element. And then here's, a couple of folks have already talked about the risks of investing in ICOs, among other things, largely because of the volatility, as well as you don't know what it's tied to and or if there's actually a project behind it. So at least with asset tokenization offerings, so ATOs, in our case, it's actually tied to a hard asset that you can own outright. And so here's one example. So on our platform, we had a developer actually raise about $160 million to develop a timeshare resort over in Japan. It was, what they ultimately did was highlight exactly what all of the, the attractive qualities were for the resort, where it was placed, so location, just all the general diligence information one would look for prior to pulling the trigger, investing in a project such as this. And it turned out, a lot of folks who were on the platform, whether it's individuals or institutions, agreed and put in about 160 million or so. And so this was kind of what we ended up in the very beginning, kind of the structure from a timing and then also a funding perspective. So obviously it's very similar to ICOs, where we had a pre-sale, we had a phase one, then phase two, so more of a phased approach. And it essentially incentivized people, if you wanted to invest in real estate and you like the location and the opportunity, you'd do so and have an extra incentive to it. And again, actually, another important thing to highlight is, as you see here on the pre-sale, it says price, US dollars, 240. Again, any individual can put in, at minimum, 240 all the way up to whatever it is they're offering. So in this case, it was 160 million. So if you had an institution, you could take the whole thing out. But in this case, given that our platform is essentially online and available to anyone, you can start making intelligent investments fairly quickly. Here's actually another. We're working on and listing a project. So it's a resort and park over in Shenzhen, and similar thing. We described what's at least appealing about it. Their goal actually is just to raise 3.1 million, and we believe they'll be able to do that pretty darn quickly. And what's actually really cool about this too is, so in these cases, these two examples, they're timeshares. So what they do is, so you're able to buy it and then use it annually and be granted the rights. But as soon as you do, so this actually, you can't really do this today, but because of our platform, people are now doing it. You can use it for, let's say, 2-3 years, and as soon as you want to stop using it and you think, been there, done that the past few years with the family or friends, whoever, you sell it. And someone else on the platform buys it or invests in it, and then they use it for its rights. Or if you want to keep it for years to come for kids, among others, you can. So again, back to, we're making what was traditionally illiquid assets much more liquid and in theory valuable. So this is just kind of a highlight of that current project. Again, they're raising 3.1, offering 13,000 coins for it, or tokens, and we have a set date on the platform for it, and all the traditional things you would see with ICO. And so, if you're interested in at least doing research around how to actually evaluate real estate opportunities, especially as our platform grows, because we will be announcing the first project here in the U.S. Very shortly. Here's at least how you can find us, and at least do a little bit more diligence on what we're doing in the space. But we've had a fair list of very prominent folks invest in the company. Not just from an ICO perspective, but from an actual, venture investment, ranging from like Draper Dragon, so Tim Draper and those guys out in Asia, really bet on this company because essentially we're paving the way for what's deemed as ATOs. So it's exciting, and ultimately that's at least the talk. So, thanks.